At Anthrocon, a bunch of furs ran around with a bunch of ribbons saying, "We got a Nazi fur problem." This past weekend, Eurofurence said, "Hold my liquor." If you haven't heard by now, that ribbon has returned, and this time it has gotten a lot worse. While everyone was going through registration, people have been posting these pictures of their con book, which included one of the sew ribbons, along with a letter from the chairman himself. And I will read some of this from Chairman Sven Tegehoff. I am sure I mispronounced that, so... But here's what the letter says. It won't come to anybody's surprise that the world has changed a lot since then. We used to be a group of comic book collecting nerds. What used to be a group of comic book collecting nerds is now a worldwide phenomenon. We are no longer on our own. We have become a small but integral part of contemporary pop culture. We are now part of other people's stories and about their world. Furries show up in movies, in television series, in the news, in museums, in magazines, in fashion shows, and even in politics. There I said the evil P word. We've become a part of society at large, and what happens in the world affects the furry fandom just like the rest. Well, let me stop right there. That one paragraph. Show up in movies, television series, and news. That's already been happening for years now. Even before the furry fandom came in. Now, politics... I don't know where that came from. Because I don't think of... aside from the furry fandom, I don't associate animals with politics. The only things that would come up here in America are the donkey and the elephant, the logos for the Democratic and Republican parties over here. The only reason I would associate politics with the fandom right now is because everyone forced it in. But let me continue with this letter. I know that many of you would love to retreat back to the cultural bubble that we've emerged from. Me too, but I'm afraid the toothpaste won't go back in the tube. Give me a second here, because... never mind. But I'm afraid the toothpaste won't go back into the tube. Today's sheer amount of media penetration of everything we say and do makes it impossible. Every decision is now, at least in part, a political decision. Not really. Every time I heard most of the news stories I hear involving furry content, it usually has nothing to do with politics. Anything that I did see, I've only a couple of articles where it had something to do with politics. The most recent one about this penetration of the alt-right, which is another topic for another day. But it's not as prevalent as it makes it out to be. The only reason why that, like I said, it isn't, well, it says amount of media penetration, so I assume it meant all media, including social media. So if that's what they're going for, then yes. But it's mostly from within our fandom. That's the problem. But here we go. Now, here is the part that really bugs me. Don't worry, we're not planning to become a part of the daily political discourse anytime soon. We're still con runners, not activists. However, there's one political statement we just can't avoid. We have to choose our position in the political spectrum and stick with it. So we hereby distance ourselves from all right-wing movements. Eurofurence is liberal, Eurofurence is social, Eurofurence is a get-together of people of all nations. Eurofurence welcomes all identities, all genders, all ethnic groups. Eurofurence promotes the freedom of the arts. Eurofurence is about being who we really are, and no government, no politician, and definitely no internet hate mob is going to take that away from us. So right after they say that they're not going to become a part of the daily political discourse anytime soon, they immediately follow that up with putting in their own political position. But the one part that really stands out to me is that, let me read that sentence again. We hereby explicitly distance ourselves from all right-wing movements. Not far right, not ultra-right, no Nazi this, no Nazi that. All right-wing movements. That is where I have a problem. I know there are furs out there that do hold conservative views. And that is not to say that I would disagree with their views. And again, this does not have to be limited to social conservatism. That I know that there are conservatives out there that actually do support gay marriage. That actually do have a liberal view of society. Look at the log cabin Republicans here in America. So when you say that you're distancing yourselves from all right-wing movements, what does that make someone who just has a conservative view feel about that? It does not make them feel welcome at all. And may I remind you, just because that someone has a conservative view does not equate to a Nazi. This has never been a problem. I have kept saying this. I have said this over and over again. But everyone continues to try to drive in that we have a Nazi problem. And also, this is in Germany. I think the whole country has already taken care of that. They already have a law that outright bans anything Nazi related. Now, I do know that they have allowed for something in video games as long as there are certain conditions that are followed. And so I don't see what this really has to prove, because you already are in a country where it's outlawed. So this would not be a problem for you anyway. And I even took a look at who's running your government right now. And I had to do quite a bit of research to figure this out. Let's take a look at which one has the furthest right views. And that would be a party called Alternative for Germany, which they hold somewhere between right-wing and far-right. And I read into what views they hold, and believe it or not, not much difference from some of the conservatives here in America. They believe in German nationalism. They are against same-sex marriage, but favor civil unions. They argue for family values as part of German identity. They are skeptics of climate change. And of course, they've had the image of being related to far-right groups. One notably a group called Pegida. And some of their politicians have been noted to be racist, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, xenophobic. And do you know how many seats they hold in the Bundestag? Out of the 709 seats, they only hold 92. And now compare that with the next one over, which would be the Christian Democratic Union, which, even though that they are a conservative party, you won't believe how far they've progressed over the years towards the center. Christian democracy, a lot of their political ideology is influenced from Catholic social teaching. And of course they are socially conservative. They have a relatively skeptical stance towards abortion and same-sex marriage. Though there are some Christian democratic parties that have accepted the limited legalization of both. And they've actually have moved towards a more liberal view of economics. So even your and do you know how many seats they hold in the Bundestag? 185. And their rivals, which are the Social Democratic Party, hold I'm sorry, let me back that up. That's a wrong number. They actually hold 200. And because what I just said was just the constituency. Their opposites, the Social Democratic Party, hold 153. So even your most... So aside from the Alternative for Germany, your most right-wing group is moderate right. And they're even more liberal than our conservatives here in America. So frankly, I don't think you have a thing to worry about. And as far as state parliaments, out of the total 1,821 seats throughout the country, Alternative for Germany only holds 158, with the most seats they hold in Berlin. And of the 160 seats in Berlin, they only hold 25. So, I know I've ranted a lot I've only stayed on the first topic of this video, and it's already 13 and a half minutes. That's how much that I have to say about what Eurofurence is doing. But pretty much what I am getting at is that Eurofurence is really going the wrong way here. At least with Anthrocon, at least they were not pushing it. They were not the ones that were putting out those ribbons. And they were not trying to put in a position. They were just trying to run a con. But in this case, the con itself is pushing it. And this is where I draw the line. I know people have asked me in the past that have asked me to, if Eurofurence was going to be one of the cons I would go to in the future, and I really did have a motivation to go there if I had the money to go there, the logistics to go there. But now, because of because of this recent little stunt that's been pulled, Eurofurence is now off my list. The basic reason I cannot support what they did. At least with Anthrocon, at least they were not pushing it. Eurofurence, they've actively did it. So I can no longer put them on my list of cons to go to. And I really didn't want to do it, but unfortunately this is where I draw the line. Okay, enough about Eurofurence. Let's go to another con, Midwest Fur Fest, which has gotten a little bit of controversy as of recent. More about their dealers area and what can be sold. Recently, they changed their policy on selling third-party content. And the most recent policy says, and I'll quote from this: Midwest Furry Fandom Inc. prohibits the sale or offer for sale at Midwest Fur Fest of items that reproduce third parties' intellectual property without the express written permission from the owner. Midwest Furry Fandom Inc. reserves the right in its sole discretion to require the removal of any articles that violate this policy. Midwest Furry Fandom Inc. reserves the sole right to refusal to comply with this policy in any appropriate manner, including revocation of privileges to conduct commerce at Midwest Fur Fest and removal from Midwest Fur Fest premises. And prohibited articles include, but are not limited to, unlicensed depictions of characters appearing in third parties' movies, TV shows, books, sound recordings, still images, sculptures, or any other media. No fan art, no counterfeit goods. So that means, basically what that means is that if what you're selling isn't your intellectual property, unless you have permission from whoever owns that intellectual property, you can't sell it. Now, of course, for dealers that rely on third parties for their sales, this is a big issue. But from what I am reading in the context of this is more of Midwest Fur Fest trying to protect themselves. Because if anyone finds out that someone is selling their content that's their property but wasn't made by them, they could sue them. And this would pose a big problem for Midwest Fur Fest, and it would end up having them lose a lot of money and could ultimately shut them down, worst case scenario. Now, I know that there are some dealers that are not going to be happy about that policy, but the best thing they can do right now is that they either have to work around it, and they have to get permission from the owners of the characters, the show, whatever, or they're going to have to either change up what they're selling or not end up going there at all. Let's see. This story, we have a PETA story. They have been pushing Mondelez International, the parent company of Nabisco, a food company here in America, to redesign the packaging of Barnum's animal crackers. And they gave in to them. And so what they did is that now if you remember on the old box, you would see animals behind bars, like you're seeing them either at a circus or a zoo or whatever. But now those bars are gone. And for those of you not from America, Barnum is part of the name Barnum and Bailey's a former circus here, which performed for over 100 years, but now they're now defunct because of declining ticket sales. So my feelings on that is, okay, I don't really care. Doesn't really impact me, and what they're doing is pretty harmless. So I'm like, whatever. If they want to if they want to redesign the packaging, I'm okay with that. I don't really care. Yes. Last week I got to see Disney's Christopher Robin. And I won't be doing any spoilers on here. I'm just going to do my quick feelings on this. Not the most memorable. And I know that this is not a part of the original book line. But I see, when I look at this movie, I want to ask myself, would this hold up as a story of its own? And for a grown-up Christopher Robin, I can see this working. I do have to ask, why was Tigger so old and ragged? I mean, his orange was so faded. You don't even have to see the movie. Just look up some of the pictures up on Rotten Tomatoes, Netflix, or whatever. You can see that he has faded color. It's like, why is he so old? And this made me come up with a lot of questions about it, but I'm not gonna ask them here because it'll probably give some spoilers. But if I were to compare this with another movie, I would put this on the level of Pete's Dragon. Not the most memorable, but it holds up on its own as a story. And of course, Jim Cummings, like he never left the studio at all. It sounds like the original characters. He plays Pooh and Tigger. And like I say, I'm glad to see that he's beginning plenty of work from Disney. For those of you that remember seeing him in 2014, he was one of the guests of honor of Anthrocon. And I don't know if I still have that video of his panel. I think I do, but it's like way back in my archive. But you can see the whole thing with Jim Cummings, with everyone asking him questions and stuff. But good to see that he's still enjoying himself. But when I looked at the credits, I was surprised to see what one of the characters were. The voice for Rabbit, Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor. I listened in, and it didn't even sound like him. So he really got into the role there. But that's not the only thing about Christopher Robin that the reason I wanted to bring up the story was because China won't play it over there. The reason why is actually not that old. It's back in 2013 when people in China had started to use the image of Winnie the Pooh to compare with their leader Xi Jinping. And they found it, so they started to compare Winnie the Pooh with the image of a resistance movement. So because of that, So because of that, they will not show Christopher Robin in China. Alrighty, so I know I've ran very long here, so let's get to upcoming events for the month of September. For SonaCon, from the 6th to the 9th in Hampton, Virginia. That was the one I confused it with last month. I knew there was a convention in Hampton, but I mixed it up with FA United. So that's the one I was thinking of. Furry Migration, 7th to the 9th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. At the same time, West Aussie Fur Frenzy in Perth, Australia. September 8th, Fur Square, not Fur Square, the one in Wisconsin, the one in Bangkok, Thailand. We have Fur Jam from the 14th to the 16th in Sydney, Australia. And finally, from the 21st to the 23rd, Emerald's Fur Summit in Pensacola, Florida. Alright, so yeah, I know I spent the majority of this video ranting, but I had to get that off my chest. But hopefully we'll get some more positive stuff in the next few weeks. So till then, this Dragon's Mouth is now closing.